Hey there, my name's Rod Yates and you are listening to Humans of Music, a Jaxsta podcast. This is where I talk to music creators and industry professionals about their lives and careers, the ups and downs of their journey and the lessons they've learned along the way. And my guest today is Swedish pop singer and songwriter Tove Lo. The first time Tove Lo held her microphone out to the crowd and asked them to sing the words, she closed her eyes and hoped for the best. When the crowd sang the chorus back to her, she turned to the side of the stage and saw her parents in tears. And as she says in this interview, it was a pretty big moment. It was an indication to her parents that their daughter was going to be okay pursuing music. That was all the way back in 2014 when Tove was in New Zealand supporting Katy Perry, riding high on the success of her debut album Queen of the Clouds. Her journey since then has been punctuated by incredible highs and some pretty devastating lows. On the one hand, she's co-written chart-topping hits like Habits Stay High and Ellie Goulding's Love Me Like You Do, as well as being welcomed into Max Martin's songwriting collective Wolf Cousins. On the other hand, Tove has dealt with bouts of depression and potential career-ending vocal surgery. She talks about all that and more in this interview, which took place late last year just after she'd released her fourth album, Sunshine Kitty. And we started off by talking about her greatest fears when releasing a new album.
Probably that I'm going to care too much about the reactions, because you can tell yourself that you won't, but you will. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm like, no matter how like happy or proud I am of it, like that kind of worry comes in like around, a couple weeks out before it comes out. You're kind of just like, what if everyone just hates it and like I won't be able to do this anymore. Like no one will come out to my shows and no one will like, want to listen to my music anymore. What will I do? And, but then, it's kind of, you can't think about that while you're making the album, because it needs to just like be what I want it to be. Mm-hmm. You have to make it for yourself, I think.
Do you pay attention to what people write?
I don't read any reviews or anything, but I get sent the good ones, and people will tell me like, right. Oh, it's really, really great response, and I'm like, yay,
I mean, as you get more successful, do the stakes feel bigger?
Honestly, I don't think so, because for me, like my biggest album is still my first record, It went so far, so much further than I ever would have dreamed about. So I think for me, that was like, in terms of like, success in terms of how people measure success, which is growth. Mm-hmm. I measure it in other ways, but that's the one that was the most successful. But then I feel like my second and third album is where I kind of just really laid the ground on like who I am. Mm-hmm. And that really gave me some really like just very loyal fans that just get me. And so I felt very free creating this fourth album, because I felt like I'd been both through the sort of chasing the success in like the way that you just do when you see things starting to take off, but then also like realizing like, but I still have to create music that feels right to me and that I stand for no matter what, And so, yeah, I felt very like, I don't know, I don't feel like the stakes are higher. I think I feel just free to kind of do what I want.
Right, which is a nice position to be in.
Yeah, pretty crazy position to be in. Yeah. Very grateful for that.
So obviously the world knows you as Tove Lo, but your first name is Ebba. Does anyone ever call you that anymore?
No. I mean, honestly, so Sweden is weird. Like it's very common to have like a first name, but a lot of people go by their second name. So you kind of like surround we call it tilltalsnamn, which means like the spoken name, basically. So my spoken name has always been Tove.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been called my whole life. Like all my Swedish credit cards and everything is in Tove. But obviously then you go to the States or other places where like if you don't go by your like the first name, you have to write everything of like the name that's the first on your passport, that's your name.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I've never been called Ebba actually.
Okay, really? So your parents, when you were in trouble?
Never. It was
Right.
always Tove. Yeah.
How did your parents take your move into music? Because they come from they're quite white collar professions.
Mm-hmm.
I think your dad is in financial technology and your mum's a psychotherapist.
Mm-hmm.
How did they how did that conversation go?
Well, it was, you know, they told me that they could tell from when I was pretty young that I could sing, but they didn't want to like be against it or encourage it. It was kind of like if she finds it, she finds it on her own kind of thing. But then when I wanted to apply to this kind of, you know, schools in Sweden are public and you don't pay to get in anywhere, but we have this system in high school that you can still pick a lane that so when you choose a high school or apply to a high school, you can either go to, you know, there's a lot of like music related ones, theater related, dance related, mechanics, electricians, like hairdressers. There's like really early you can get like that sort of push if that's what you're interested in. And you just apply based on your audition and your grades. So I found this music school that I really wanted to go to. A friend of mine went there and she encouraged me like, you should really apply. Like you would love it. And I remember going there and being like, this is where I belong. Like I just felt like I went to visit it and I was like, this is what I have to, this is just, I feel so at home here, which I haven't felt ever. And
What was it that made you feel that?
I just think it felt, people were just, you know, it felt like a big mix of people from all over Sweden. No set way how to dress or be. It didn't feel elitist. It felt very creative and like bohemian and had like a hippie vibe that I just loved and had dreamt about, you know. And so, yeah, I applied. They let me apply because they thought I wasn't going to get in because they didn't think, they were like, she's not that good of a singer. And so it was funny. I applied to that and then I applied to this school, you know, across the street from my junior high, which was a very like prestigious high school where I applied to the science kind of focus there. And I got into both because I was really good in school. But I chose obviously the music school and they were on the verge of telling me no, but they were like, when they saw how happy I was that I got in, like I was over the moon and crying and, you know, they were just like, we can't say no. There's no way. So they were against it, but they weren't against it enough to like kill it for me, you know,
Right.
which, because they came from a place of worry, you know, it was never like a, you know, this isn't, it was just worry about me not being able to take care of myself.
Yeah,
you
sure.
know?
In the years before you became a success, did you feel their pressure or were they kind of monitoring how you were doing?
there was definitely pressure. There was a, you know, very much like, because I didn't want to study after high school. I wanted to play in my band and just like work. I worked at Urban Outfitters for a while in Stockholm. I worked at a bakery. I worked in the coat check at this arena place where I'm now going to play when I come back to Sweden, which is pretty cool. And yeah, they weren't very happy with that. I think when I said I didn't want to study, like go to university or college, they were like, well, you know, don't expect any help from us if you're not going to go to university. And I was like, that's fine, I'll get a job. And I got a job. And, but still it was like, you know, this isn't enough for you. This shouldn't be enough for you. Like you need more. Like, okay, so, and then eventually I started like doing session singing and demo job and cover gigs to pay my rent. So, and I was happy because I was like, I'm living off music. Like I can be in the studio all day. My studio was basically this like little shed outside my cousin's house that they let me borrow. So that was like isolated. There was no heat or anything, but I had a little heater and I set up my studio in there. This old, huge PC computer, and I had like cracked Cubase 3 that I would produce in. And I would be there all day, and then I would do like a few cover gigs or like backup singing a few nights a week, and I could pay my rent. But it was still like, you know, that it's like, are you in the studio 9 to 5? That's the time when people are at work. And I was like, it's not how creative stuff works, man.
Yeah.
But I think, and I was really angry with them for a while because they just were, it was never enough, and I would remember saying like, what if it's enough for me, then it should be enough for you. But, Dad was just very convinced that like, me kind of just scraping by worried him,
Of course.
and it also comes from, like what he's built his whole life and like, the way that they grew up and everything. So I understand, but I think, I don't know. And maybe that gave me more of a drive to really prove him wrong or something.
Right, yeah.
So, we're very similar, me and my dad. So, he's also very, very stubborn and innovative and always is like, onto something new. And
Sure.
Yeah.
Was there a moment where you were able to show them the success you had? Coming to a big show or showing them a chart? Was there a moment where they knew it was going to be okay?
Yeah, there was, obviously when everything started to kind of take off, it went so quickly. And I think probably, there was a lot of moments. I think, they've been kind of mad, which is really a sign of worry throughout the years when I haven't been in touch enough or I've been away so much and kind of like, not been able to plan things and that, would drive them crazy, which it's just different lives,
Sure.
So I understand that, but there was this one time when they came out when I opened for Katy Perry in Australia in 2014. And it was right before my vocal cord surgery, so it was kind of like just an emotional time in general. But coming up for that, and I remember when I played both here and then in New Zealand, and New Zealand was the last couple shows, and I hadn't dared to once like hold out my mic and like sing it to me, really, because I was like, I don't know if they really know me, and you can't really hear anything in the arenas when they have your in-ears and stuff. So, but I did. I like. In New Zealand, I kind of held up the mic and I closed my eyes and was like, they're going to sing it back. And then the whole crowd sang back the chorus to me. And that was like, they were crying so much.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a really big moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Were they musical? Was there a lot of music in your house growing up?
I don't remember there being. I think my aunt was very, like, we would always sing at her house. Like, she would make up all these, like, really crazy, violent little chants that, like, for fun, that she would teach us kids, and it was hilarious. She was very clever with words. Is very clever with words, and but my parents, there'd be like, I remember more like around Christmas and stuff, there'd be music and there would be like kind of like disco and stuff, but I don't remember any like kind of big musical memories with them really.
Yeah, right. Okay. And I mean, lyrically, you're always very open. I think I saw a quote from the NME, which I really liked, where it says that you wear your imperfections, darkness and sexuality like a crest. Mm-hmm. Were you raised to be open?
I would say, even though my mom's a therapist, I don't think so. I think like this. I think my parents are open people. Like my dad is very emotional. My mom is also emotional, but can be more like, figure them out before they come out. And I think I'm more like my dad, but they both have, they were both raised in this is how you behave. These are the manners that you need to know. And like, this is what you show people, this is what you hide from people. And that was the whole area where I grew up. And I think me being kind of like going in and out of, being quite depressed when I was younger, I remember just feeling like I didn't want to be a burden on anybody, and that I was mad about not being able to be as perfect as my friends or as happy as my friends or as pretty as my friends, and feeling kind of out of place. And I think, I remembered, Dad confronting me and wanting to talk to me about it, but he would do it in quite funny ways where it would kind of sound, I took it as an accusation or like a blame, but he meant it more, again, as like a worry and a care, but I read into it as like, you're attacking me kind of thing. Because I do the same thing. He sometimes does. It's like he when he's worried or like wants to, talk to you about something, it kind of like comes off as like he gets angry or like intense, and I'm the same way. Which I've learned after a few relationships now. I'm trying to, and so I think in a way yes, but there was also a lot of things that were kind of pushed down.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did because you've spoken about that darkness you felt as a child, and with your mum being a therapist, did she see it in you? Did she try to help you with it?
Yeah, I mean, they both definitely did. And I think they both saw it. And I think what I do appreciate too is that they weren't that scared of it. They kind of let me have it as well. And I think when they saw how much creating things helped me, because it's weird though, because I have this darkness, but then I also have this other side that is super like on it, and like smart and driven and good in school and like taking charge. And I would be like head of the kind of what do you call it, like student body. Like I'd be the head person trying to push through all the demands of the students to the teachers, and I would just right. I'd win writing contests, and I would so I was also, and I would sway pretty intensely between the two.
Yeah.
So I think they saw, as long as I didn't lose too much like of that side, to them I was fine. But they definitely were, would try and talk to me and interfere, and but at some point it's like, and I think this is what's cool about mom, because she was also like, at some point you gotta accept, if a teenager, it's still a grown person, if she doesn't want to speak to you, you can't force that,
Yeah.
And so I always felt like they were there for me if I needed them, which I think is why it was also easier for me to kind of break out, because I knew that they would never, if I fell, they would still be there.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And I read a quote from you where you said that since a young age that you've rallied against this point of view that girls shouldn't do that, and you shouldn't do that because it's not safe for a girl. Who instilled that in you?
That was probably mom. I'd say both in a way, because whenever I said the argument, like, well, Leo, who's my older brother, he's only like a year and a half older. I'd be like, Leo gets to do that, why can't I? And then neither of them felt that they could argue with that argument, because they're like, you should have the same rights to do what he does, or like, And so that was just, they both felt that, like, that was the reality, or the way it should be. And then mom was, she'd never tell me to look or dress a certain way. She would never talk to me about makeup, or that I should try and make myself look pretty. It was never, neither of them ever like would kind of make that sort of like me, the way that I would see my friends' parents kind of like, sort of tell their daughters like, oh, you can't wear that looks hideous on you, like, hey, you need to lose weight, you need to, that kind of stuff. They wouldn't, my mom would be upset with that, with my friends' parents. It would be like, how can they talk to their daughters like that? It's like just creating a huge insecurity, And so I think, and just, I don't know, it was kind of just always rooted in me in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you used that as a guide for your career?
I think so. Maybe not intentional, but I think I had, yeah, I think it would just be if I have something that I want to do and then someone just goes, oh, that's not what women do. I'm just like, oh, really? It is what I do. And then just kind of go for it. So yeah, it's definitely still, it's never been kind of like a point I've been trying to make. It's just me doing what I want.
Sure. Have there been moments in your career where you've, I guess, faced that opposition?
Yeah, for sure. I think I remember getting in a fight with a journalist I don't remember where we were in the States, but somewhere. And she asked me like, so you sing about like sex, just being like fun and that it doesn't have to be serious. Like, do you like sing about it like that just to like kind of, hope that the guys you sleep with then maybe fall for you so we can turn it into something real? And I was like, no, I mean what I said, that sex can just be fun sometimes and doesn't have to lead to something. She's like, I just don't really believe that, you know, that's just not what women do. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And it was like, I went off on her a little bit. But yeah, it was just me, like, you know, you can feel the judgment kind of, you know, and like censorship in songs where I know that it would be completely fine for a guy to sing it, but because I'm a girl and it's pop, it's not cool, that kind of stuff I run into a lot.
Have you noticed that you've been part of a change in that though? In that attitude?
Honestly, I feel like the censorship has gotten worse, like in terms of what you can say and not say. But I feel that there's definitely more of like a movement of female artists to kind of speak in their mind and like supporting each other and just like being more blunt about most things.
After the break, Tove talks about coping with the sudden rush of success that came with Queen of the Clouds, the first time she met Max Martin, and the vocal surgery that nearly finished her career. Welcome back to Humans of Music and my interview with Tove Lo. As a teen, Tove attended the Rytmus Music School in Stockholm, where she found her stage feet via a series of lunchtime concerts, which is where we pick up the conversation.
So you basically audition. You can either apply for like, okay, you want to do the vocal, like the kind of vocal branch, or guitar, drums, bass, keys, production, songwriting, or like sound engineering. That was when I went there. And I applied for the vocal kind of education line. I don't know what to... I'm like translating these things. Or like,
yeah, that makes sense.
But... and then so it was the first time, you know, I've ever had like singing lessons and learned how to properly use my voice and all the different ranges you have. And while learning that and like, you know, learned stage presence and learned, you know, how to set up a drum kit and how to play guitar and piano. And so they really kind of prepared you for a lot of things, both creatively and like the sort of just skill of using your instrument. And then also about being a performer and like what it takes and like be a good band member and kind of like, you know, that it's important for a singer to know like what, you know, when you listen to a song, like what instruments are playing in the song. And I remember I did the first 6 months of my lunch concerts, I did acoustic because I couldn't hear what instruments were in the song. I would listen and be like, I don't know what that is. What is that? Is that a guitar? Is that a drum or is it like percussion? Like, what do I say? Do I ask a percussionist? Do I ask the drummers? Like, are they gonna laugh at me? So I was too nervous. So I just kept doing everything acoustic. But my amazing vocal coach, Maria Benhaji, who still is like my favorite. I sometimes go and see her still in Stockholm when I go back. She was like, hey, why do you always just do guitar and vocals on your little lunch concerts? And I was like, I don't know, I just like that. She's like, it's not really what you listen to though. I'm like, no, but you know. She's like, no, you're gonna have a full band next time. I'm like, but I don't even. She's like, ask someone, ask for help. There's so many musicians around. So then finally I was like, okay, just accept that you're new at this and just like go for it.
And so when you say what you're listening to, because it was bands like Nirvana and Hole, is that right? So you're listening to
Silverchair, a lot of Silverchair.
Yeah, right. And because the band that you formed after school was like a math rock band, which seems like a real left turn. Was it a left turn for you?
I think it was, honestly, to me, it was in that phase I'd listened to a lot of... I'd met this group of friends that were all very talented musicians, and they were all listening to a lot of like Frank Zappa and like Tool and Jeff Buckley and like just like a mix of just like complicated and like, you know, hard and attack, like kind of just loud. Very musical and very loud. And I just got fascinated by it because it was just like, oh, I don't even know if I understand what's going on here. And that really made me interested.
Okay.
And then one of the guys in that group was like, we were just talking. He's like, yeah, I write. He's like, I can basically play any instrument. I can write anything, but I can't put lyrics together. And I was like, I have a lot of poems, but I can't put music together. And so he's like, give me some of your poems and I'll put music to them. And so then all of a sudden I was just in this band, you know? And so it was kind of, for me, it was just like, because I learned how to sing. I was definitely not one of the best singers when I started there. Like, I really practiced.
Yeah.
But no one really wanted to be in a band with me. I didn't really have, like, my voice wasn't very, like, expressive at the time. I was really nervous when I performed. I wasn't very confident in the musical side of it. So to me, just to be like asked like, oh, this is really cool. Like, do you want to, and then the fact that I was able to sing everything technically that he wrote, you know, which, you know, if you've heard the band Tremblebee, it's pretty advanced stuff. A lot of key change, a lot of like, you know, tempo change and everything. So I just felt so honored, you know, and I don't know, I kind of still really enjoyed the music, like how aggressive it was, and it just kind of fit where I was at in my life mentally.
Yeah,
as well. Yeah.
And then fast forward several years and you find yourself in LA meeting Max Martin. Such a, you know, a hit maker for Britney and Taylor Swift and Backstreet Boys. What was that experience like the first time you met him?
It was funny because I was there to work with a writer who's a friend of his, and who was supposed to help me find a place to stay. Because even though I just got signed to Warren Chappell Publishing, they were like, we never send anyone to LA this early. We're only doing it because he's requested to work with you. And not Max, but this other writer. And, you know, we can't pay for hotels, so you're going to have to find somewhere to crash. And I was like, that's fine. I'll sleep under a couch. I don't care. And so I get to LAX, I get picked up by a driver, which for me was like, holy shit. Like,
You've made
what
it.
is this? Yeah, I've made it. Seeing the Hollywood sign. And I'm talking to this driver and I'm just like, it's a big SUV. And I just don't understand what's happening. And he just says, I'm like, so where are you taking me? I don't even know where I'm going. He's like, oh, I've been told that I'm taking you to Max Martin's house in West Hollywood. And I was like, what? So I arrived there and I'm like, what is happening? And I run into Doris, his daughter, who was maybe 11 or 12 at the time. She's like, hi. I'm like, hi, I'm looking for Alex. I'm not really sure why I'm here. She's like, oh, Alex. And then he comes out. And we talked for a bit, and I was like, "So, where is the place you said I could stay at? I don't, you know." He's like, "Oh yeah, oh wait, Jenny, Martin's wife is like, do you mind if she crashes here for a few nights? Because the other her friends didn't like help her out, so she doesn't have a place to stay." I'm like, oh, and I can just, you know, she was like, "I'm sure that's fine," and. So I kind of just got to crash. They were being so generous and lovely. This random, you know, person just comes into their house. And when I was there, then like, you know, so I stayed the first night. And the next day, I go into the kitchen and Martin is just standing there. And I'm like, hi. And he's like, hi. Oh, are you a new house guest? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I talked to Julius, who's my publisher. So you just got signed to Warren Chappell? I'm like, yeah. He's like, congrats. Like, so do you have any songs out? I was like, no, nothing. Have you written anything? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. He's like, just play me something. And so I play him Love Ballad, which is the first song that I ever released. And he was like, this chorus is really good. What are you doing here? I'm like, I'm gonna have sessions and stuff. And he's like, all right, good luck. You can play me stuff whenever you want. And I was like knees shaking, you know.
Yeah.
And then I didn't work with him that trip. I was just doing sessions on sessions and sessions, and no good songs came out of it. But it was a great experience. And then the next trip I went back, you know, by that time I hadn't been asked to be part of Wolf Cousins yet, but then we did work together a little bit. And then after that trip I was asked to be part of the songwriting collective,
which is wild.
Yeah, man.
So with that time, were you feeling? I mean, self-doubt creeps in, I presume, when you're playing Max Martin a song for the first time, but you just do it.
Yeah, you just do it. Hope, you know, especially if he offers.
Yeah.
No, but he's such a lot of integrity, and I don't want to talk too much about him because he doesn't even do interviews.
Sure.
But he's just it's amazing to see someone with so much talent who's so musical and have so much he's so humble and so always questions his own.
Sure.
I think that's why he's so good. He never leans on his name.
Yeah. And you mentioned before that when things started happening for you, they started happening quickly. So Habits Stay High becomes a hit. Queen of the Clouds blows up. What does that do for you? How long did it take you to get used to that immediate rush? I mean, you'd worked for it for a long time, but when it hit, it really hit.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feel like it was a quick journey, you know. There's a big mix of feeling so like the biggest constant adrenaline rush ever, of just like happiness, and then also a constant fear of not knowing what is going on.
How do you deal with that fear?
I don't really know. I think back then it was just like a lot of highs and lows, a lot of up and down. And I think I was trying real hard I noticed if I just took it day by day and didn't worry too much about what was happening next week, especially when you're that busy, you kind of have to just do it in sections, But I think what I learned from it is that just remember that it's music, and what comes first is that you're happy with what you've created, and the creation comes first, and then it's not life or death. Even if it's, your passion and your life, it's like the passion is the music, not the career.
Yeah. When did you come to accept that?
Probably after my vocal cord surgery.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's when I realized I can't push this so far that I lose the one thing that matters to me the most,
And is that what was happening because you had been pushing it so hard?
Yeah, I mean, we were flying. I was doing hours and hours of interviews every day. We were flying every day. We're doing 3 radio stations a day and playing festivals on the weekends. No sleep. It was constant, and it's pretty constant now too. But I think I take care of my voice better. I do make sure that I have breaks. I kind of go I know how to say no now, which I was too scared to say no. I never compromised with the music. There I felt very confident, no, this is what it's gonna be. But when it came to saying no to things, that we were doing promotion wise or show wise or whatever, then I felt I believed sort of the thing of if you don't do this, everything will fall apart.
Yeah.
And then I got to the point where it was this is you can barely speak, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And the surgery really shook me.
Could it have ended your career? Was there that fear?
Yeah, I mean, they go in and cuts in your vocal cords. So I had a lump of scar tissue from them bleeding and then me still singing on them. And I remember, saying I need a break. I can barely, just this, we just need this. Can you at least just do this? And I was fine, it wouldn't take no for an answer. So, and it's also, it's hard for people who don't use their voice this way to realize, but it's kind of telling someone who has run a marathon and has inflammation in their legs to run another marathon. That's kind of how you have to see it. It's a muscle. So the surgery, basically, they cut out that little lump and then you wake up and they're okay, so do a tiny little hum. We have to make sure that your voice is still there. So I'm just okay, so now there's a chance that it might not be there, And then you do that little hum, and then you have to be completely quiet. You can't breathe heavily. You can't cough, or you can't eat something sharp for 5 days. You have to be completely quiet for 5 days, and then you start doing these rehabilitation exercises for about 2 months. So yeah, it's an intense process. Yeah.
What was going on in your mind just before you did that hum?
Oh God, I was. It was a mix of like, okay, if it's not there, you're gonna become the best music producer who's ever lived, and and yeah, it was kind of like, you know, if it's not there, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like it was really a very intense moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it that you still had that drive, though, that determination. If this doesn't work, then something else is going to work. After the break, Tove pays tribute to all the people in her life who have helped her get where she is today. Welcome back to Humans of Music and my interview with Tove Lo. Tove has spoken previously about a period in her life where she tried to create chaos, thinking it was helping her creativity. And it's here that we pick up the conversation. What kind of chaos are you referring to?
I think just kind of spontaneous, impulsive recklessness, you know, passion and highs and kind of being a little bit destructive, making sure I don't have a plan, that people can't really rely on me, so that you're kind of alone, even though you have a lot of people around you, and not really get too close. And kind of just, being in this sort of state of constant rushes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's been cool because this album, I've been in a way better place in my life and in a calmer place. And it's been really amazing to be able to write without chaos.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you get to that point where you realize, actually, I don't need that in my life. I don't need to be sad to write. I don't need that chaos to write, which must be quite freeing, I imagine.
Yeah, and I think I'm always going to have like a, you know, melancholy side to me, and I'm always going to have this kind of sort of, you know, I'm an emotional person, and I go in and out of kind of darker times, but I think I know that they're going to go away, and I think that's a big difference.
Yeah.
And realizing that I can write from a happy place is pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Jaxsta is all about giving credit where credit is due. Who would you like to give credit to for helping you with your career and getting to this point?
Oh my God, so many people. You know, it takes a village. I would, if I talk through the creative stuff, definitely, I kind of want to read my whole thank you letter from this. Ludwig Söderberg, who has, you know, executive produced all of the albums with me and has been with me since day one, and is just, I love creating with him. He's such a genius. Jacob Hjellström, similar situation, been with me since day one, is such just creative madman genius who comes up with the weirdest shit that just like nails it.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone from Wolf Cousins, Max Martin and Shell Back, for like guiding us through it. Julius Peterson, who's like my publisher, who I just trust completely, also since day one. My manager, Laura Haber, who is just a badass and can make anything happen. It's incredible. Who else? My tour family, my tour manager Brian, who's sitting out there as well. Everyone in my band, you know, makes the songs come alive. I can sit it for an hour. My family, you know, my creative director and boyfriend, Charlie, who I love creating everything visual with. My labels, because even when they don't understand, even if they're like, we don't get this, we can't even work with this because, you know, the title's named Disco Tits or the title's Bitches, and we can't even take that to radio or promote it or do ads for it, whatever. But we support, like, do you, girl, you know. They've never gotten in the way of anything I wanted to put out. They've always been in support of my vision.
Great. You
know, through like both the stuff that they can work and the stuff that they can't really work. So I really appreciate that. I just have an amazing team around me. I'm so lucky.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Tove, thank you so much for chatting with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that's it for another episode of Humans of Music. Thanks very much for listening. And thanks also to Tove for her time. This episode was co-produced by Bo Adams and was recorded at Forbes Street Studios in Woolloomooloo, where it was engineered by Anthony Garvin. The theme and incidental music were written and performed by Sam Lockwood. Please remember to subscribe to the Humans of Music podcast so you never miss an episode, and feel free to share amongst your friends and jump online and rate and review it. And remember, for all your music credits and to get the story behind the music, head to jaxsta.com. And while you're there, sign up for a 30-day free trial of Jaxsta Pro, the essential tool for music industry professionals. Until the next episode of Humans of Music, I'm Rod Yates. Thanks for listening.